Let's move now into the second topic. We're talking about Jimmy Butler. Went down with an injury last night in the second half against the Houston Rockets, a non-contact injury that now Shams and Jack Maloney, Shams of Yahoo and Jack Maloney of CBS, saying that it is going to be a surgery for Jimmy Butler. He is going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. So Jimmy goes down, and now he's pretty much going to be out for the end, for the regular season pretty much. He's going to be able to come back for the playoffs, but now we have to raise the question on how this will affect the Minnesota Timberwolves and their playoff run, because Timberwolves without Jimmy Butler, who really became their leader now, after pretty much December on, will not be on the floor. And this is still a young team led by Karl-Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins. How will this team respond with their leader going down, Ricky?
Can I drop a bombshell on you guys?
Sure.
Let's see. Could you guys see this in your crystal ball? Between the third-seeded Spurs and the ninth-seeded Clippers, 3 games. T-Wolves are tied with the Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
What if it's a situation where, you know what, it doesn't matter that Jimmy's coming back into the regular season. T-Wolves fall out of the playoffs.
Oh, I think it's entirely possible.
Yeah, it's possible. No, that's not crazy.
Well, because the part of me that looks at it is I think this team is no longer going to be the 4, no longer going to be the 5 maybe. But the big question to me is, if I had to come down one last spot between the two, Pelicans and T-Wolves, I think the T-Wolves could do just a little bit better to save their spot in the playoffs compared to a Pelicans team.
Well, and Dave, now looking at the Timberwolves and who they're above and who they're a little behind in San Antonio, with Jimmy going down, does this make them worse than teams like Oklahoma City, Denver, Portland, New Orleans, L.A.? You can even throw the Utah Jazz in there as well. Does it make them worse than those teams, and how much worse does it make them?
Yeah, I think undoubtedly it makes them worse. I mean, Jimmy was definitely a leader out there. He was definitely a huge locker room presence and just clutch as hell for them when they needed him. I think that this definitely takes them below the Thunder and the Nuggets. I think it's kind of interesting for the Blazers-Pelicans range, because all 4 of those teams, and I'll even include the Jazz, they've all been on a good run going into that All-Star break, and I can kind of look to see that continue. And the Timberwolves, what we saw last year out of them, without Jimmy Butler, was a team that had a ton of offense, couldn't close games for anything, though. And this problem is going to return, I think, this year. We'll have to see how Wiggins reacts without having Jimmy Butler on there. He's been having a quiet year. Now he could pop off and really close out the year well. But again, are they going to be able to close out games? Are they going to be able to win the close ones?
Are they going to be able to play the defense? To me speaks more, because Jimmy's a phenomenal defensive player.
And this team's still not good defensively.
Yeah, and you lose arguably your best defensive player.
And they're put like Crawford's going to get more minutes. BJ's going to get in that lineup as well. I just think that he is such a huge loss for a team with 2 other super young, talented stars that I still think that it just kind of puts them into the fear of falling out, and I think that's very realistic. I would honestly say that no spoilers, like them and the Spurs. I mean, I know we're talking Spurs later, but like both these teams could fall out, and I could see the Clippers and Jazz in the playoffs. Like, wouldn't even blink an eye.
You could see the San Antonio Spurs and the T-Wolves falling out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
You think that both of those teams have a shot now?
I think it's potential. I think Pop can coach any team into the playoffs, is my only thing. Like, Pop's going to coach a bunch of G Leaguers to be a playoff team and win 45, 50 games. But I just think it's in the realm of potential. And the other thing is, even if they make the playoffs as like an 8th seed or something, let's say they sneak in, can they beat anybody without Butler now?
Well, and that's the thing I'm kind of thinking about in my head is compare this team to last year's team. Besides maybe Taj Gibson, Jamal Crawford, and Jimmy Butler, Jeff Teague too, I think. Yes. Most of this team is, except for Teague, Butler, Crawford, Gibson, they were here last year. Team was not a playoff team last year. So what makes you think, like, this is the question out there to everyone, you still have Gibson, Crawford, and Teague. What makes you think then this team, without the guy who was like, oh, thank God we got Jimmy, like he was the main slice, what makes you think that the team that without him didn't make the playoffs can make the playoffs without him? Like, that's what I'm going through my head right now is he is that important to this team. I believe that they want to make the playoffs. They need Jimmy on the court. And the 4 to 6 weeks, if I'm a T-Wolves fan, I'm just doing one of these because I'm like, if he comes back, he's got maybe best case scenario, he's got 3 games left, and we got to win one of those games for
the best scenario is going to be Friday, March 23rd.
I'm saying
so that's going to be against New York. Then the next Friday after that, that's going to be 5 weeks. That's going to be Dallas. And with that, they have 5 games left. And then the best game scenario that you're talking about is going to be on April 6th against Los Angeles, where they play Los Angeles, Memphis, and Denver.
I am saying so.
That's the 4 to 6 week time.
4 to 6 from right now.
The 6th would put them at April 6th.
With 3 games remaining.
The 5th week would put them at March 30th, which would give them 6 games remaining if it came back on that day. And then the 23rd would put them at 4 plus 5 or 4 plus 6, 10 games remaining.
I said best, I meant worse. So I'm sitting there going like this, and I'm going, okay, worst case scenario, we're still tied for an 8 seed with Lakers, Grizzlies, and Nuggets to go. We can still do this. We can still do, and that's what I'm saying to myself. We can still do this. Stephon Diggs, you there? Okay, we can still do this. That is what I'm doing.
Stephon Diggs. Why are you asking?
Because Minnesota, the miracle. They need a miracle.
Douchebag.
Oh, God.
Like, I mean, that's what I'm doing. Like, worst case scenario, you get Jimmy back 3 games, hoping that you're still in a playoff race.
Yeah, I mean, you're still hoping that you're in a play. I mean, you're still going to be in the playoff race again. Like right now.
They're not going to go on a dumpster roll.
4.5 games separate the Timberwolves and Jazz right now. And right now, the T-Wolves are leading over the Bulls right now, 81-76 as we're currently recording this. So it's a tight game out there. They're still getting used to not having Jimmy on the floor. But even after that, you have Sacramento on the schedule. You have the Clippers on the schedule. You have the Knicks on the schedule. Memphis on the schedule. Atlanta, Dallas.
Got some hard-tanking teams there.
LA, Memphis again. I mean, you have a rough stretch where you play Utah. You play Portland, Utah, Boston, Golden State, Washington, San Antonio, Houston, and LA, the Clippers.
Ooh.
That's a rough stretch right there.
Yep.
But you will get 3 games before, 4 games including tonight. You get 4 games before you hit that schedule and that stretch on March 8th. So you at least got to think.
So they end the year on a rough roll.
Well, no, they don't end the year on the rough roll. It's right in the middle of the roll.
So you're saying the first tough game is against Boston?
No, I'm saying the Jazz. But I'm saying but the Jazz aren't a playoff team.
Yeah.
So I'm saying playoff teams. You have Portland in there, but Boston is a top seed. Golden State's a top seed. San Antonio, Houston, top seeds. I'm saying that's the roughest stretch. I'm saying you're getting 4 games before you're taking on top level championship caliber teams.
I still don't like that for me, it starts March 1st.
Okay, because then it starts March 1st.
Well, yeah, because you have Portland on the road.
Semantics, Ricky.
And that Jazz team isn't in the playoffs right now, but you get them in Utah. So
they were one of the hottest teams going into the break.
For me, it's March 1st through the 20th, basically the whole month of March almost.
I wasn't trying to bash the Portland and Utah teams. I was just saying
that's going to be a huge stretch.
You're facing premier teams, and it's a back-to-back that Portland-Utah thing as well. But I'm just saying it's a premier stretch that's going to be tough. And looking at that though, let's include your stretch then: Portland, Utah, Boston, Golden State, Washington, San Antonio, Houston, and LA. That's 8 games right there.
Now,
what does that team need to?
I want to even ask before we even get there is if, regardless of how they play, do you feel like it's going to be a knee-jerk reaction one way or the other to bring Butler back early if possible, or just shut him down to keep him safe for next year? I think that stretch determines how he's going to come out.
Well, let's see at least first. In that 8-game stretch, what does this team need to do before we get to that question of are we going to shut down Jimmy Butler? Because those 8 games are pretty much going to decide their fate on whether they're going to be making the playoffs or not. So in that 8-game stretch, do they need to go 4-4? I mean, if this team goes 1-7, does that knock them out of the playoffs?
I don't know if it does. I mean, we've seen teams go on bad rolls. We've seen them go on good rolls. Right now, I honestly think that stretch, they can steal wins. This is still a super talented young team. I think they can steal wins from some of these teams. I don't expect them to come out of here, 7-3 in the 10, but I could see them going 500, maybe 4-6, and that still keeps them in the running. I just think that I'm a little bit on the fence because of Tibbs. I think he could see this and see that clearly we need Jimmy back. We're going for it. And he is more of a win now guy. We've seen what he did in Chicago. The return rate for injuries was always ahead of expected, unless it was, a serious concern down for the season. He's always going to get players back.
Well, and one thing with the T-Wolves, too, again, if you get them back by that earliest 4 weeks, you still have 10 games left, and that's still a nice stretch where you can add, 7 wins to your total and still move up that chart. You're also playing Denver twice in that stretch. Denver currently a playoff team. You also play Utah in there as well. They're a team that's at least fighting for that spot. So you can possibly knock out those teams as well and push down and gain some gains on them. So there's definitely teams out there in that stretch when Jimmy's supposed to come back that's going to be killer. But if you go 0-8, 1-7 in that stretch that we mentioned, Portland, Utah, Boston, Golden State, Washington, San Antonio, Houston, and LA, that could be a season killer.
No, it could be.
But the thing that you talked about shutting Jimmy Butler down, I don't think they're going to do it for exactly what you mentioned. It's win now, and also this is the second year of Tibbs. He misses the first year. You gotta get it. You gotta get a playoff win under your belt. I mean, this is the season for Minnesota. You look back, and 2003, 2004 was the last time this team made the playoffs. This is a fan group that expected to make the playoffs, and if they don't make the playoffs, there's going to be some heat under Tibbs because, hey, you played him too much. That's how he get injured. His meniscus was loosened from sitting on the bench against on that All-Star game. I mean, like, there's going to be players and fans that are going to be upset with how Tim's run this teams if they don't make the playoffs.
To go back to one of your points, Sean, of what do they need to do in this stretch?
Yeah.
To me, there's 3 games that are the most important: Portland, Utah, LA. Because right now I'm looking at Clippers between that same strand: Knicks, Nets, Pelicans, Cavs, Magic, Bulls, Houston, Thunder, Portland, T-Wolves. Not the easiest of schedules. They've got some in there that
There's
they could win.
cupcakes.
Yep.
There are some tough opponents in there, though, are teams that can give them a run. Blazers, kind of the same effect. They get the T-Wolves the first game of that, but then Thunder, Lakers in LA, Knicks, Warriors, Heat, Cavs, Pistons, Clippers, Rockets, and they got Boston right after that 3 days later. The Jazz, though, they get the T-Wolves, then they get Sacramento,
Cupcake.
Orlando,
Cupcake.
Indiana, Memphis,
Cupcake.
New Orleans, Detroit, Phoenix,
Cupcake.
Sacramento,
Cupcake.
Atlanta.
Big cupcake.
Ooh.
If you
And Dallas.
in Dallas 2 days after
Big
the
ass
20th.
cupcake.
The Jazz are the team, because of Jimmy Butler, the Jazz are the team that could benefit most from this because of that stretch.
I was going to ask that
based
question.
off of what T-Wolves can do.
And I completely agree with you what you just said. I mean, the Jazz right now, 11 straight games they are on. They just recently lost, but still 9-1 in their last 10.
Mitchell going off.
Yeah, Don Mitchell going off. Trey Lyles has been fantastic for them. Jumping Joe Ingles has been great. This Jazz team, and we talked about Quinn Snyder before. He was, I think, top 7 coach in our coaches ranking. We don't need the exact number. He was a top 10 coach. We don't need the exact number.
Move.
Quinn Snyder, a fantastic coach. He's been doing a great job with this team. This is a team that's going to be, I think you hit it on the head. This is going to be a team that benefits the most. It's the Utah Jazz. Another team that's going to benefit from it, the Denver Nuggets, because this is a team that's been putting points up offensively, and they're not good defensively. Denver is, but offensively, this is a team that Denver, I think that now they can really start to see, all right, hey, Minnesota's falling. We can start rising up, and hey, we could put ourselves in at that 5th spot, and hey, we're going to go up against the San Antonio Spurs. And while the San Antonio Spurs are one of the best defensive teams in the league, we have offensive powerhouses in Nikola Jokic. We have great shooters on the outside, and Gary Harris and Jamal Murray. That's going to be, the idea of, hey, we don't have to face Golden State or Houston. This is now our opportunity to jump up higher and possibly face San Antonio.
I want to throw this at you. I've got some big winners, kind of the same one you did, but here's what I'm thinking my winners. First, the Jazz, they could be a playoff team, but Thunder and Nuggets, because how I'm looking at it, this is all me, how I feel like this is going to go out.
Yeah.
Thunder move up to my 5.
Yeah.
They now get a home series that first round.
Wait, Thunder or
5? I mean, Thunder to 4?
Thunder to 4. So they get a home playoff series now. Nuggets to 5. So now the Nuggets in that 4-5 matchup where it's like, hey, you're right. We don't have to play Rockets, Warriors, or Spurs. We can play the Thunder. But hey, we're going to speak about the Spurs later. What if the Thunder jump them? That's a whole different thing. But the Thunder and the Nuggets, because I think those are the prime 2 that are going to jump up. I don't think the T-Wolves are going to win many games within that stretch of March that we talked about. And they're going to be a 6 or below team. That's what I think. 6 seed or below. I'm leaning more towards 9, though. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs.
You think they're just going to narrowly miss? I mean, the West is so close. Like you said, just a few games separate 3 from 9.
In the end, if I had to give my playoffs, no order, just how they are right now. Rockets, Warriors, Spurs are in. Thunder, Nuggets are in. Blazers are in. And then I would go any of the other Pelicans, Clippers, and Jazz, any of those 2 over the T-Wolves.
I think it's crazy that you're going to take the Pelicans, who are 1 game closer to falling out.
I might lean more towards Clippers and Jazz. I might lean more towards Clippers and Jazz, but I wouldn't count the Pelicans completely out.
I would say a team that's currently in the playoffs that's mostly going to fall out. It's probably going to be Portland and the Pelicans. I know that AD's can carry this team, but how long can he carry this team for?
You get concerned with that.
I mean, that's the thing is, like, we've seen Anthony Davis put this team on his back before. They made the playoffs once with him, but it's how much does he have in his gas tank to do that? I mean, this is a big guy. We know he's one of the best basketball players in the NBA, but you're working with not a lot of talent out there. I know Drew Holiday and Nico are out on the floor there, but outside of that, that is a team devoid of talent without DeMarcus Cousins. And I think that's something where New Orleans is a team that's still, they're 5-5 and they're on a 4-game win streak right now. But at some point, that luck has got to break, and Anthony Davis is going to slow down, and teams are going to start just focusing in on Anthony Davis, and we're going to say, hey, let's make Nico Mirotic and Drew Holiday beat us, hey, let's have each one more.
April's coming up.
Let's have each one more.
March and April's coming up.
But let's have each one more beat us on the outside. Like, teams are going to do their best effort. They're not going to do a great job, but they're going to do their best effort to try to slow down Anthony Davis. And if Anthony Davis isn't putting up 45, 5, and 5 and 17 rebounds, this team is definitely going to struggle. So I think Pelicans are at least going to be a team that's going to fall out. And then it's really the Jazz, the Clippers, the Timberwolves. I think those teams are going to be fighting for the 7th and 8th spot, because I agree with you. Thunder and Nuggets are going to move up.
And then the Blazers are going to fall out then?
Well, I think right now.
Oh, they move up to 6. That's right.
No, I think the Thunder and Nuggets will move up.
Yeah,
for sure. And then it's the T-Wolves, Blazers, Clippers, Jazz, and Pelicans fighting for that 6, 7, and 8 seed.
I just think in the end, of course, it's like, well, Ricky, they're 7th for a reason right now. I feel like towards the end of the season, CJ and Dame are going to do enough to get this team into the playoffs.
Yeah, they're literally still, 1 game behind being the 5th seed.
Yeah, I'm just saying with Portland, I'm think that they're still going to be in that 6th, 7th, and 8th spot. I don't think that I'm not saying they're not making the playoffs. I just think that they're going to be a team that's still going to be fighting for a spot in the playoffs. I think they're more safer than the Pelicans are. But going back to the T-Wolves, because this is a topic focused about them.
Yeah.
Dave, how does this team end up winning games? Because Jimmy Butler, huge component in their offense and a huge component defensively for them. How do they win games, the Timberwolves, in this era without Jimmy Butler for the next 4 to 6 weeks?
I think you're going to have to see the emergence of old Karl Anthony Towns. I think his usage is going to go back up through the roof. We saw this early in the season when Jimmy was not out there every night. It was kind of that flip-flop of, here's light Jimmy Butler, here's heavy Karl Anthony Towns. And when they flipped it, all of a sudden, they started winning games. They started getting serious, and they got their mojo rolling. I think we're going to go back to heavy cat usage, and we're going to have to see if Wiggins can really get back to what we expected him to be, or if he, is going to linger in that, still developing ground. I think that he is kind of the decider of this team's future. We know what Cat can do. Let's be honest. He is one of the most athletically gifted bigs in basketball today. I think it really comes down to Wiggins' performance and how they slot in B. Jelly and Crawford's minutes, and it's just going to be a balancing act there, because I truly trust in Teague. I know that he gets a lot of shit because the offense doesn't run well while he's out there, according to a lot of fans. If you watch the games, it doesn't look as good as it could be. I think with Jimmy not handling the ball, we're going to see a different look from the offense as well. Well,
and one thing with Wiggins, too, we talked about Cat's usage going down. Wiggins' usage has plummeted. Yeah. He was the guy who led the T-Wolves last year on usage with 27%, 27.5 usage rate last year. Towns was around 26. So Wiggins had more usage compared to Cat last year, but we all still think of Cat as the guy. But Wiggins, I think you hit it nail on the head. We know that what Karl Anthony Towns can do. When he gets the ball in his hands down low, he's going to put up points. He's going to be able to drive to the bucket. No one's able to stop Karl Anthony Towns offensively, but we're going to need to see Cat step up defensively, and then offensively, we need to see Wiggins rise up, because Wiggins, you mentioned the fact that he's not getting the ball in his hands, but he also hasn't looked like the same player. He was more efficient last year. He was just looking more confident out there. And while Jimmy, I think it's a much needed addition to this team, it seems like it's taking confidence away from Wiggins, and now Wiggins will have to go back to his mindset of last year. Hey, I need to be the guy. And with the 2 games before we mentioned that stretch in March of the Jazz, Portland, Blazers, Portland and Blazers, the same team. Golden State, Boston. You need to start being the guy again, Andrew Wiggins. You need to start, picking stuff back up. You need to start, having that mindset of the guy again for the next 4 to 6 weeks. And then it becomes the problem of, if Jimmy does come back, this is a playoff team. How is Wiggins, Butler, and Cat going to go back to what happened where Butler was the guy? So it's going to be something that this is totally going to mess up the mojo and the flow of this Timberwolves team, and it's really going to be falling on Tibbs to come back and say, hey, this is how we're going to run this team. And Tibbs needs to be not only a great coach out there, but he needs to be able to bring these guys together and lead them in the right direction. And I think one thing, too, that's needed to be switching up a little bit is the minutes that JB's playing, because he's being worked like a horse out there, not playing in the All-Star game, getting this huge honor, and just doesn't play at all in this All-Star game because he's so damn tired. It's finally his break. So I think one thing is you're going to get a healthy and rested Jimmy Butler, hopefully, when he comes back. He might not be the same player exactly, for the first couple games, but if you get him 10 games before the season ends, he'll at least get some of those jitters off. But it's really what's going to happen without Jimmy Butler and how Wiggins is going to respond. I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Ricky, obviously Wiggins will need to step up. Cat will need to step up. If this team does, go a decent stretch in that 8-game run, let's say 4-4, finish 500, lose to Boston, Golden State, San Antonio, and Houston, they win the other 4 games. What do you think Minnesota's plan should be after those games when Jimmy Butler comes back? How do you go back? Do you go back to what happened, before when Jimmy was the guy on this team, or do you go with whatever's hot and just work Jimmy in?
Follow-up question. This comes to putting me in the
question with a question.
Love when
That's
people
Ricky.
answer my question with a question.
I got to be put in the right situation to make this. You got to give me solidified a little bit.
Sure.
Let me know when he's coming back.
Okay.
And where do you think I am in the playoff standings? That's the 2 information I need.
You are 7th in the playoff standings.
Okay.
There's not a lot of game. It's still same, game separated.
I'll say
not a ton
maybe
of
like
game
a game or 2 between. Yeah.
Yeah. You're still 7th. You got Clippers breathing down your back at 9, and Pelicans still clinging on to life at 8.
What date is it?
And I was getting to it.
Okay,
Ricky. I was looking at the
He's
damn
setting the
schedule.
mood.
Jesus Christ.
I'm trying to think.
Let's work them back with some cupcakes. They're going to come back around week 5. You're going to come back Wednesday, March 28th. Jimmy Butler versus Atlanta. So it's going to be in Minnesota before you go out to Dallas and Utah.
Well, of course I'm playing. At that point, I play him.
Well, he's gonna. Yeah, he's gonna. No,
Yeah.
I'm not saying
But
a question
how
of
you
play
play
him. How is he gonna work back in this offense? Because this is a team that's doing well against Golden State, Boston, with Wiggins being the guy and Cat being the guy. How do you work him back into the offense? Is it return to how the Timberwolves were doing?
I feel him out. The Hawks and the Mavericks. By the Jazz, he's back to normal, hopefully.
So you're saying,
by
whatever,
the Jazz, he has to be
whatever
back to
worked
normal.
or didn't work, screw that. We're going back to what got us here in the first place.
What won us games in the first place, yeah.
Okay. I think that's interesting.
Because the thing that worries me, too, about this is we talk a lot like, oh, now that they don't have Jimmy, they're going to be in close games. Like tonight against the Bulls. If there's a lot of last-second shots and like, hey, I got to put the team on my back, not having Jimmy Butler out there is a huge disadvantage.
No, without a doubt.
Without a doubt. And that's where I think that this team will fall because it's going to be a lot of like, man, that game was close. Man, that game was close. Probably should have won that one. Hey, with Jimmy, we win that one because he would have made that final shot. I feel like in your scenario, I kind of ease him back those 2 games. By the Jazz, it's full to go. April, we're going for the playoffs.
I mean, this is Tibbs.
Yeah.
You think there's easing back with Tibbs?
No, it's right away, 40 minutes, right against Atlanta.
That's the answer we were looking for.
Jimmy's playing defense and offense both ways, not taking a single break. You picked up the water bottle? Nope, slap it out of his hand.
Jimmy's ass is coming back March 11th against Golden State. He's playing 40 minutes on ABC. That's what's happening.
March 11th, he's there now,
Dave,
playing in Chicago.
What do you think's going to happen?
I think it's going to be a slower transition for him. I think Tibbs kind of plays this one cautiously. In my mind, some of the troubles from Wiggins was because they overlap in play style with Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler, slasher, gets the foul line effectively. And that whole spacing problem that they've had up in Minnesota without Jimmy there, Wiggins is now the key slasher. He gets to get easier shots, and I think that'll work out well. The problem is, like you said, we bring Jimmy back in that stretch. I think we're going to go back to watching Jimmy be the primary ball handler. I think that Wiggins, regardless of even if he's averaging like 23 a night for that stretch back to what he was doing at the end of last season, I think he gets, again, back, slim that roll down. They really like leaning on Taj and his veteran leadership out there. He gets way more touches than I expect him to when he got picked up by Timberwolves. My honest answer is, we're going to see diminished role from Wiggins. And, he's not a great three-point shooter. Is the biggest hurt, to be honest with you.
And just to throw it out there, I know this game's still going in effect as we're recording. Wiggins has 21 against the Bulls. Teague has 25.
Yeah, I mean, Teague can play.
That's a surprising one.
Really?
Carl-Anthony Towns only has 14.
Teague literally has had one of the worst games of basketball I've seen this year.
Well,
I don't remember which game it was, but it was a horrible game. He was, I think he was like 1 of 12 from the field. He was awful. Had like 10 turnovers.
No, that's fair. I just think that, you have to work Butler back in because that is what gives you the best chance to compete and win basketball games. I don't care if they make a weird 8-2 run in those games doing whatever voodoo they're doing.
No, Jimmy's back.
Jimmy comes back, you rotate him back in, and you get back to where you were before the injury because that is the team that can scare playoff teams in the West. Yeah,
and Jamal Crawford actually having a great game, 5 of 7 from the floor. Cat struggling a bit. He's 0 of 5 from the field. Has 10 boards, only 14 points for Cat. So they're relying on Jeff Teague, Andrew Wiggins.
Maple Jordan
shaking
out there
a little bit. 20 minutes for Jamal Crawford as well. So not too crazy of a workload for the old man. But it's going to be interesting to see. Dave, do they make the playoffs?
I'm going to say yes.
What seed?
They will go in as the 7th seed.
Okay.
I think they're gonna clutch on. Maybe 7 or 8.
No playoffs, Ricky?
Nope. They'll be the 9th seed.
All right, I will take them. I'll take them making the playoffs. I think they'll be the 6th seed. I know it's a rough stretch there that we mentioned, but I think they end up being okay, going 500.
Yeah.
I think this is gonna be a team that they're gonna win the games that they're gonna they're beating the cupcake right now in the Bulls. I think they're gonna beat the teams that they need to. They're gonna lose to Golden State, Boston, but when it comes to like games against the Nuggets or a team that are close to them, I think that they'll still be able to get the win over those teams because Karl Anthony Towns is so damn dominant when he is on. Same with Andrew Wiggins. I feel like those guys have enough of a rapport with one another, playing so long with each other for the past 3 years. It's going to be a team that's able to, rise up to the occasion and at least score more points than the other team because they're not going to be able to play defense, but at least they'll be able to rise to the occasion. I think they'll still make the playoffs.